Om Vakratunda Mahakaya Suryakoti Samaprabha Nirvignam Kuru Me Deva Sarvakaryeshu Sarvada. Om Shri Mahaganapataye Namaha. Om Shri Gurubhyo Namaha. Harihi Om Sadashiva Samarambham Shankaracharya Madhyamam Asmadacharya Padyantam Vande Guru Paramparam Asmat Gurubhyo Namaha. श्रुतिस्मृतिपुराणानाम् आलयं करुणालयं नमामि भगवत्पादं शङ्करं लोकशङ्करं शङ्करं शङ्कराचार्यं केशवं बादरायणं सूत्रभाष्यकृतौ वन्दे भगवन्तौ पुनः पुनः ईश्वरो गुरुरात्मेति मूर्तिभेदविभागिने व्योमवद्व्याप्तदेहाय दक्षिणामूर्तये नमः। ओम श्री मेधा दक्षिणामूर्ति स्वामिने नमः। ओम सहनाववतु सहनौ भुनक्तु सह वीर्यं करवावहै तेजस्विनावधीतमस्तु मा विद्विषावहै। ओम शांति शांति शांति। हरि ओम श्री गुरुभ्यो नमः। हरिः ओम। ओम पार्थाय प्रतिबोधितां भगवता नारायणेन स्वयं व्यासेन ग्रथितां पुराणमुनिना मध्ये महाभारतम् अद्वैतामृतवर्षिणीं भगवतीम् अष्टादशाध्यायिनीम् अम्ब त्वामनुसन्धदामि भगवद्गीते भवद्वेषिणीम् यं ब्रह्मा वरुणेन्द्र रुद्रमरुतः स्तुन्वन्ति दिव्यैस्तवैः वेदैः साङ्ख्यपदक्रमोपनिषदैः गायन्ति यं सामगाः ध्यानावस्थिततद्गतेन मनसां पश्यन्ति यं योगिनः यस्यान्तन्न विदुः सुरासुरगणाः देवाय तस्मै नमः। ओम Namaste once again, everyone.
Namaste, Guruji. Pranam.
Guruji.
Namaste. So we are looking at the 40th sloka. Indriyani mano buddhihi asyadhishtana muchyate etair vimohayatyesha jnanamavritya dehinam. This is the sloka we were seeing. So after having talked about the dangers of kama and krodha being an enemy, especially for a spiritual seeker, in this sloka, which we are discussing, Krishna explains the base or the foundation on which this kama and krodha rest. And in the process, he expounds the process through which desires are created, they are nourished, which eventually leads to the destruction of the Viveka Shakti or discriminative faculty, and which is a very important wealth for a spiritual seeker. So here in this sloka, he explains that there are three bases from which desire gets nourishment. First, desire gets generated as a thought, and later it is nourished by these three bases. The first base is the five sense organs, Indriyani, because they alone introduce the sense object to me. It is these five sense organs which create a temptation in me. Once the sense organs have contacted the desirable sense object and they succumb to that temptation, then the mind takes over. The sense object is pushed by the sense organs into the mind, and thus creating what? A strong vasana. It's sort of a relay race, you know. The sense organs do the first round. They go around the whole this thing first. First job they do. and hand over the baton to the mind. Mind says, okay, now you can take back seat. I will take care of the rest. And what does the mind do? Mind's job is what? Generating thoughts, dwelling upon those thoughts, contemplating on those thoughts, meditating on those thoughts. So mind, when it takes over, he says, oh, that's wonderful. This thing is wonderful. Oh, that is so cheap. Oh, here there is an offer. Buy one, get one free. So these vasanas are generated and they are protected by the mind. They are nourished by the mind. They are fed by the mind, dwelling upon it repeatedly and gradually from what was initially, oh, this is nice, that is nice, it changes to I want it, I want it, I want it. And then comes the stage where I say, without that, I cannot survive. I have to have it at any cost. These are all, I mean, this is process each one of us go through. Here, beautifully, it is explained. So that these are all very important for us to understand. As I told in the last class, if we take, if you have to have a remedy for diabetes, we should know what causes the diabetes, what is the process through which the whole thing happens. And then only we can address the problem by coming up with proper remedy or proper medicines, etc. So see where it started and where it has come. We don't realize for a moment that without that particular object, which has now become some sort of a must have for us, I have been surviving all these years. That is not understood. Similarly, even though I do not as of now possess that object, the imaginary possession itself gives such a nice feeling that I cannot even imagine an imaginary loss of that thing. Like we saw in the, that person who won a watch in the lucky dip, who lost an imaginary two-wheeler in the story. And how does this mind work? How does it, goes from nice to have to I want to have it, I cannot live without it kind of situation? He says, Aavignidhi, repeatedly dwelling on the sense object. The sense organs present it, the mind repeats it. So this is the second base, manaha. First was what? Indriyani, the sense organs. Second is manaha. Now what is the third base of kamaha? He says buddhihi. Buddhihi, the intellect is the third source. The intellect contributes to the desire by its wrong judgment, by its delusive thinking, by its indiscriminate attitude. And what is wrong judgment of the intellect? The judgment of the intellect that this external object will make my life happier and secure. The error in the judgment is that the external object or situation or person will make my life happier and more secure. In fact, this is something that some time ago, at least, now we are not hearing much about it. But till some time ago, maybe a few years ago, we were hearing youngsters after completing their undergraduation or whatever it is, they used to get a job in this, what they call, this BPO, back office processing, all this IT. Sorry?
Your voice is low. Suddenly it has gone down.
Yeah, it has gone down. But those days, I remember, they used to get some good salaries, 15,000,
No,
20,000.
Guruji, your voice has gone down.
Oh, voice has gone down?
Yeah.
No, we cannot hear well. We can hear well.
Is it a problem with everybody or only a few people?
No,
I can hear very well.
I
You
can
cannot
hear
hear
you
me.
fine.
So
Yeah, I
that's
can.
a localized problem of the person who has to check their internet connection. So what I was trying to tell you was that time these youngsters got jobs 15,000-20,000 rupees per month, which is a very decent job in India, So what they did, okay, I've got this job as if that job is going to be permanent. And then banks also started offering, two-wheeler loans, housing loans, this loan, that loan. And because of their salary, they could afford to get those loans, thinking that I will repay it over 25 years or 30 years. They went for those loans. And then what happened? When they lost the job, they were caught in a difficult situation. This is where, even though the sense organs did their job, the mind did their job, the intellect failed to do the job. The intellect should have warned, hey, you are doing all these things, you are taking all these loans for buying all these objects which you are, of your desire. What if tomorrow you lose the job? How are you going to meet those liabilities? That intellect should have warned. But what happens when all this is going on? The intellect also supports, okay, very good. These people are saying that those people, the mind is saying, so let me also support them. And they lands in an error in judgment. According to Vedanta, this is the worst judgment. Because Vedanta says the external world is neither a source of joy nor a source of sorrow. It is just an external world. That's all. You experience it, period. When you experience, if you get some joy out of it, well and good. Some other times you may get some grief out of it. That also you accept. But don't consider those things as source of joy or source of sorrow. According to Vedanta, I alone am the source of joy. I alone am the source of sorrow. Also, ahameva sukha hetuhu, ahameva dukkha hetuhu. But this sounds contradictory, isn't it? How can I myself be both the cause of joy and sorrow? For that, Vedanta gives a very famous example. We have probably discussed this example earlier also, but it will be useful to recall that. Rajju Sarpa example. There is a rope lying on the floor in semi-darkness, twilight time, so the light is not very bright. The rope is thick and strong rope and lying on the floor in a sort of a zigzag manner, no, not straight, in a zigzag manner. A person sees the rope and mistakes it for snake. And the mistaken rope becomes the source of fear. The rope which is mistaken for a snake, that becomes a source of fear. When it is seen as it is, that is as a rope, it is not a source of fear. Whereas the mistaken rope is as a snake, when seen as a snake, it becomes a source of fear. Similarly, Vedanta says, when I understand that my real nature and understand myself as I am, I will understand that I am the source of Ananda. I am the source of happiness. But when I have no such understanding of my real nature, that is, I don't understand myself as I am, then the very same I becomes the source of sorrow. I am the very same I. There is no change in me, but in one circumstance, I become the source of joy. In another circumstance, I become the source of sorrow. So the understood I is Sukha Hetu. The misunderstood I is Dukkha Hetu, says Vedanta. Therefore, the point is that the world is neither Sukha Hetu nor Dukkha Hetu. Now, how can we prove that the world is not a source of Sukha or Dukkha? That can also be easily proved. It all requires analysis, the thinking mind, reflecting upon what our experiences are. Many times we fail to do that. And that is why this delusionary thinking is there. First of all, one and the same thing, which is a source of joy for me, could be the source of sorrow for somebody else, isn't it? Suppose there are two people, a man and a woman, they want to get married. As we call it, love marriage, rather. Without parents knowing about anything. This has been going on for some time. Now, finally, parents come to know about it and they say no to that marriage and all that. And the girl being what it is, what she is in Indian families, those days, not these days. So the girl is, the marriage of that girl is fixed with another person. Now, for the person who is going to get married to the girl, the marriage is a source of joy for him. I'm going to get a wife and very wonderful life I am going to lead. But the person who failed to get married to the girl, the same marriage is going to be a source of sorrow for that person. So the same event being the same, it can be a source of joy for somebody, source of joy for somebody else. So therefore what? It proves that the source of joy or sorrow is not in that object or that event or in that circumstance. And that is why, when one person discards, say, a pair of new shoes or pair of shoes because it is a source of sorrow for him, someone else picks it up because it's a source of joy for him, object remaining the same. Another example is that when one person finds it uncomfortable, or let us say even not uncomfortable, he wants to sell his house for some reason. He is not happy living in that house. Maybe it's too, he feels it is small, I want to go for a bigger house. So he is, that causes unhappiness, so he wants to sell the house. But when he is going to sell the house, there is somebody else who wants to buy the same house. So for this person who is selling, the house is a source of sorrow or grief or unhappiness. For the person who is buying, the same house is a source of happiness. Even one gets married, initially the couple think that the marriage is a source of joy. After some time, what happens, you all know. I don't need to elaborate rather. Sometimes it leads to separation and even divorce. And why? Because both of them probably found another source of joy, and this story goes on. Especially Western world, this is a very common thing. So therefore, the point is, what is a source of joy for one? The same person is the source of joy for the other. From this, we can draw the conclusion, first of all, joy or sorrow is not in the object or person or circumstances. They are not the sources of joy or sorrow. And from this, we can draw one more conclusion. What is that? If for some person, some object is really a source of joy, it should give me joy forever, isn't it? Once it gives joy, it should be, if it's a source, joyness is there, permanently it should give me joy. If that is so, we will never discard or dispose of any object. For example, you go to a marriage or some function where there are a lot of sweets. So you take one sweet, let us say one jalebi, source of joy. Two jalebis, more source of joy. Three jalebis, more happiness. 4, 5, 6 and all, the same jalebi can turn into a source of sorrow. Suddenly some sound starts coming from your stomach. Pain starts. Same jalebi. You say, I don't want any more jalebi. Don't even show jalebi to me. Same jalebi which a few minutes ago was a source of joy. If that was a source of joy, permanently you eat 100 jalebis, it should give you joy. That doesn't happen. Our experience doesn't support this conclusion. Therefore, from all these arguments, it is clear that any person or any object, or for that matter, any situation, is neither the source of joy nor the source of sorrow. The reality is that I, who is superimposing Sukha Hetutvam and Dukkha Hetutvam on people, objects, and situations, I am superimposing, and that is why I mistakenly believe that they are sources of joy and they are Sukha Hetu and or Dukkha Hetu. Intrinsically, they are neither Sukha Hetu nor Dukkha Hetu. Therefore, what we need to understand is that desire arises because of the wrong conclusion that the external object is a source of happiness. And that wrong judgment is the contribution of the buddhi, the intellect. Because buddhi is the discriminative faculty. It has to analyze the situation. Because what mind does, whatever comes to the mind, that mind transfers into the buddhi. Data from mind is fed into the buddhi, the what they call the main computer, what do they call it? Processor. It is fed into the processor, and the buddhi has to use logic. It has to use reason to decide whether to do it or not to do it. But a confused, a deluded buddhi does not have that capability, and that is why the problem arises. So the sense organ's contribution is the presentation of the object. The mind's contribution is developing a liking, an intense desire, an addiction by repeatedly dwelling on the desire. And the intellect's contribution is wrong judgment that this is a source of happiness. Therefore, all three of them contribute in the creation of a strong desire in us, creation of generation of kama. And that is what is said in this sloka. Indriyani manobuddhihi asya. Asya means kamasya, adhishthanam. They are the foundation, the base for kama. Etaihi, with the help of these three supporting bases. So etaihi means what? Indriyani manobuddhi rupa adhishtanaihi. Etaihi. Through these three bases, yeshaha vimohayati. The desire overpowers the intelligent human being who fails to learn from his experience. Why? Such an intelligent human being is completely deluded, shattered. Then he says, Dehinam, this person, this jiva, this intelligent human being, vimohayati, it deludes. How? Jnanam avritya, by covering the discriminative power, by clouding the thinking capacity of the intellect. Here, jnanam, as I said earlier also, we have seen, doesn't mean knowledge, self-knowledge, it means the discriminative power, the viveka shakti. Therefore, for a thinking person, every sense object is not only not a source of ananda, but every sense object can be only a source of sorrow because of three defects. This is the another dimension of the delusory thinking. In fact, every source object is, even in final analysis, is a source of sorrow only, you can say. Because why it can be a source of sorrow? We have seen when desire is unfulfilled, it leads to sorrow, correct? It leads to anger, then finally, of course, sukha, dukkha, and all that comes, and eventually it ends in dukkha, unfulfilled desires. And that is because these very objects have certain inherent qualities because of which it eventually ends up in sorrow only. The first defect is dukkha mishritvam. Dukkha mishritatvam. Mishritaha mishritatvam. What is that? In acquiring the object, there is pain. In maintaining the object, there is pain. And finally, losing the object also, there is the greatest pain. This is the first defect. And the second defect is any amount of acquisition does not give satisfaction. Instead of enjoying, what I have is anxiety of either losing the object or desiring or yearning for a different object. Remember the story of the watch. That fellow does not enjoying the watch that he has won, but his sorrow, his unhappiness is he could not get the two-wheeler which he would have got if he had gone to the exhibition the following day, where the first prize was the two-wheeler. So every time he looks at the watch, he does not enjoy the presence of the watch. He is always, when he looks at the watch, he is reminded of the two-wheeler the imaginary two-wheeler which he lost possession of. What a tragedy, isn't it? So the second defect in objects of desire is dissatisfaction. And there is a third defect. The more I get used to these external crutches for getting a feeling of happiness, the more I develop dependence on them. And there will come a time when I can no more be independent. You can never strengthen your leg by using crutches. You strengthen your legs only by dropping the crutches and learning to walk. Therefore, the sense objects have got three defects. What are they? Dukkha mishritatvam, atripti karatvam, bandhakatvam. And an intelligent person knows that. But by covering that intelligence, the karma deludes this person, because of which he does not recognize these defects. Therefore, he says, Krishna says, Jnanam avritya dehinam vimohayati. So until now, how karma attacks What are the bases of kama? They have been talked about. Now, Krishna is going to deal with how you have to handle these three bases. How you have to address this problem. We will read the 41st sloka. Tasmatvam indriyan yadav niyamya bharatarshava papmanam prajahihyenam jnana vijnana nashanam. Anvaya of this sloka is, He Bharatarshabha, Tasmat Indriyani Niyamya Adav Tvam Prajahihi Evam Papmanam Jnana Vijnana Nashanam. He Bharatarshabha, O Arjuna, Tasmat, therefore, Indriyani Niyamya, controlling the sense organs, Adav, first, Tvam prajahihi, may you give up. Enam papmanam, this sinful one. Jnana vijnana nashanam, which is the destroyer of jnana and vijnana. O Arjuna, therefore, controlling the sense organs first, may you give up this sinful one, which is papmanam, which is the destroyer of jnana and vijnana. So, Krishna says here, since kama can delude a person and lead only to more and more dependence, one should address this basis for this. The foundation of the kama should be tackled to tackle kama. This is what he wants to say in this sloka. And here he uses the expression jnana vijnana nashanam. So if kama covers the discriminative power, what will be the consequence? He says, by covering the discriminative power, kama destroys both jnanam and vijnanam. Atma jnanam and atma vijnanam, they are destroyed by kama. So here he uses two technical words, jnanam and vijnanam. And both refer to Atma only. One gains Atma Jnanam in two stages. So we have to understand what is the difference between Jnanam and Vijnanam, and what is the approach of the Shastra in making this differentiation. So as I said, one gains Atma Jnanam in two stages. First stage is called Jnanam, and the second stage is called Vijnanam. Now, what is the first stage, which is called Jnanam? In the beginning stage, the teacher points out that you are an individual consisting of two parts. We have already seen that. One is Anatma, the body, mind, sense complex part. And the second is consciousness, which is the Atma part. So this is the first stage. Atma, Anatma, Viveka. And what is the nature of the consciousness part? That also we have discussed. Consciousness is not a part, product, or property of the body. Consciousness is an independent entity which pervades and enlivens the body. Consciousness is not limited by the boundaries of the body. And consciousness survives even after the death of the body. And that consciousness is Atma, which is different from body, mind, sense complex. Now, this teaching has to repeatedly take place And after so many hours or even sometimes years of teaching, the student at last understands and says that now I have learned that I have got an Atma and consciousness besides the body, mind, sense complex. Because when we are identifying totally with the body, mind, sense complex, we don't even have an inkling that there is an Atma, there is a consciousness also which is pervading our body, mind, sense complex. There is absolutely no clue about that. So in the first stage, Vedanta teaches, it makes a differentiation between Jivatma, Paramatma. So as a Jivatma, you are a combination of body, mind, sense complex plus your reflected Atma. So there is consciousness. This is the first stage. But this fellow till now had no belief at all in the Atma. He did not even know at all. Now he knows there is a Atma. He may call it by different names, soul, spirit. But eventually what he means is that there is something other than the body, mind, sense complex which I have. And that I have got a Atma. But even at that stage, when you ask him, who are you? His answer will of course be, I am this mortal body, mind, sense complex. But behind my body, there is an Atma. That will be an addition to his answer. Behind my body, there is an Atma. How do you say so? I believe in that Atma, and because the Guru has said, it should be true. Therefore, I believe in that Atma. Though I cannot show you that Atma, I can only show you my body. In fact, reaching this stage itself is a very big stage. Previously, he never thought that there is something which survives death. Of course, scientists even now do not accept it. Only some religious texts talk about soul, spirit, which survives, etc. Science still does not accept that. Why? Because it is invisible, intangible. So anyhow, this person says, I am the body and I have got a spirit, I have got a soul, or I have got an Atma. Vedanta says, good, very good, you have reached the first stage. Now what is the second stage? Second stage of learning. In that second stage, instead of saying, I am the body, mind, sense complex, and I have a soul or Atma, there is a shift in the identification, and I have to learn to say, what? I am the Atma, and I have an incidental temporary medium called the body, mind, sense complex. I operate the body sometimes. I do not operate through the body sometimes. In fact, it is just like my spectacles. I use it sometimes, I remove the spectacles sometimes. Similarly, body is a temporary medium through which I function. That is why in waking state, I function through the body and experience the world. During sleep state, I set aside the body and I do not experience the world. It's just like, we use microscope to see the microbes. Like that. When I remove the microscope, I am not able to see the microbes. Similarly, through the body scope, I see the world in the waking state. When I set aside the body, I do not experience the world. But when I am asleep, when I have set aside the body, am I there or not in the sleep? I am very much there. Isn't it? Therefore, who am I? I am not the body. I am the user of the body. That's what we saw in the second chapter, isn't it? Vasamsi jirnani yata vihaya. Just as you change the dress, you change the body also. But to reach this stage requires a lot of shravanam, lot of mananam, and much more nididhyasana. And when I finally say I am the Atma, using temporarily using this body in this life, it is called Vijnanam. So what is the difference between Jnanam and Vijnanam? I have an Atma is Jnanam, that is called Paroksha Jnanam. I have an Atma is Paroksha Jnanam. I am the Atma is Vijnanam, Aparoksha Jnanam. And Krishna says, everybody has to go through Jnanam and Vijnanam, every seeker, every person who is on the spiritual path has to go through Jnanam and Vijnanam. In fact, everybody will have to go through, because if not in this birth, in this Janma, there will come a Janma when everybody will have to go, because that Parandhama, the final destination, every living being has to reach. It may take crores of births, it does not matter, but that's a final destination for every living being. We must all consider ourselves so fortunate, so much blessed by the by Ishvara, that we have reached this stage in this birth. So far as we have already done 7 rounds or 8 rounds of a marathon, only 4 more rounds or 2 more rounds, or even in this round itself, the marathon may finish. And that is why, in the initial classes, whenever this Shravanam takes place, when it is all taught, one may understand what is taught very well, but assimilation of the teaching will not be there, or it will be there very feeble. And in the final stage, when the teaching is well assimilated, one will say, Aham Atma Asmi, Aham Brahmasmi, without any doubt, without any hesitation. So Jnanam alone has to go to Vijnana. First stage is Jnanam, second stage is Vijnana. And Krishna says, Kama is a big enemy because it does not allow both Jnanam and Vijnanam to take place in the mind and intellect. Because to get both Jnanam and Vijnanam, one has to come to Gita class. One has to learn Upanishads. But what happens? The desires keep this person occupied. Keeps him occupied 24/7, 365 days. Whenever he finds there is little time, he will go to the internet or to a TV. Internet, in fact, has got a lot of good qualities. It's a great boon, but also is a great distraction. Yeah, without internet, we won't be even conducting this class, isn't it? So it has got a lot of positive features, but it has got a lot of downsides also. So many videos, films, OTT platforms, etc. So many things keep on coming, and the curiosity, the desire to engage oneself with all these new things becomes more and more and more. But of course, I'm not criticizing the internet. Yeah, ultimately, it is the individual. Because of internet only, during COVID and all, big people could work from home. And now that has become some sort of a very good standby that when you are traveling also you can work. Of course, we need not discuss too much about internet because we all know about it. Therefore, if a person has got discrimination, he will also work, he will also earn. And not only that one should not earn, one has to earn, but thinking that he intelligently plans his life. Whatever will be the work, he will find time for this Gyan and Vijnanam. And therefore, when I am a slave of Kama, I won't get I won't even think of Jnana. Most people will say, oh, all these things, I attended a Vedanta class, everything went above my head. Because there was no landing space. Your head is completely covered with lots of desires and ambitions and whatnot. Vedanta does not find a landing space on the head, so it goes over it. So when I am a slave of Kama, I won't get an opportunity for Jnanam. But when Kama is my slave, I will find time, and I should find time for scriptural study, which according to our tradition is compulsory for all. Because in general, there is a feeling amongst especially youngsters. Gita study is only for who are good for nothing after retirement. They have nothing else to do. So they go for Gita study and Upanishad study, Vedanta. Since there is no work and if he sits at home, it creates a problem and disputes, quarrels, etc. So if there are some camps and things like that, some lectures, at least go away from the home and he will be pushed out to attend those camps. What will happen, as Swami Paramahansa says, the trouble will shift from home to the ashram, from family to the Swamiji. So people have a feeling that nothing else is to be done. They take up Gita. In fact, this is the real thing, because when I went to the Gurukulam, before going to the Gurukulam, after I got admission and all that, I was speaking to somebody in my family. So he said, what are you going to do now that you are retired and all that? I said, I got admission in this Gurukulam. I'm going to learn Vedanta. He says, yeah, after retirement, after all, you will have nothing to do. So it's okay, very good. Some time pass for you. Go and attend. I was shocked. Here I was a serious, seeker. I mean, I was a mumukshu. I wanted to go and learn, do Shravanam, Mananam, Nityasana. And this fellow is saying that it's a good time pass. That is, I don't blame him because that is what people think. Many people think that Gita is only for elderly people. When they are spent forces, they have expended all their energy. They can't go to the gym. They can't read books also because eyesight is failing. They may not be able to listen to music also very well. The hearing is failing. All this is down there. So best thing is, okay, go. Even if you understand, don't understand, spend your time sitting in some Gita class. Okay, what they say, you earn some punya like that. People think that by just listening to the Gita also you will get punya. Nothing wrong in that thinking. Let them think. At least they will come to the class because of that excuse. But that is not according to our tradition. Scriptural study has to be undertaking at the beginning of the student life itself. That is our tradition. That is why after Upanayanam, they used to be sent to the Gurukulam to learn what? Scriptures. But now the whole thing has changed. Anyhow, coming back, so Kama obstructs the scriptural study because it always makes you say, oh, time is money. Now is my time, my age to earn. Gita and all will take care of it. Later on, we will see. Why? Because this karma is making this person say all these things. That is why it is his enemy, Krishna says. And that's why he says, Kama is jnana vijnana nashanam. Therefore, better you handle karma by dealing with these three bases. I hope you remember the three bases. Indriyani, mana, buddhi. But dealing with these three bases is just like a first aid. It will serve the purpose for the time being. It will serve purpose for practicing karma yoga sadhanas. And therefore, in this sloka, Krishna says, Tasmat tvam indriyani adav niyamya. Therefore, O Arjuna, start with disciplining your sense organs, and by way of that, papanam prajahihi enam, handle, master the problem of kama. Because this kama is not only an obstacle to karma yoga, it is jnana vijnana nashanam. It is obstacle to jnana yoga also. It destroys both jnanam and vijnanam. This is the sloka. There is somebody who is unmuted, so I request that person to please mute. So this was this sloka. The next sloka, Krishna deals with the hierarchy of the three bases in terms of which is superior to what, and therefore which one is most important. Because when we are saying all these things, manaha, buddhi, indriyani, etc., in order to address the issue, we need to understand what is important out of that. What is the relative importance of each of these in addressing the karma problem? That we have to understand, and Krishna describes that in the next sloka. We will read 42nd sloka. Indriyani paranyahu indriyebhyah param manah manasastu para buddhihi yo buddhe paratastu saha. Ahuhu indriyani. Ahuhu means they declare. Means noble people or wise people declare. Indriyani, the sense organs. Parani, to be superior. Superior to what? To the sense objects. That he doesn't say here specifically, but why we should take sense object, I will tell you later. Indriyebhyah param, superior to the sense organ is manaha, the mind. Manasah para buddhi, paratu, superior to the mind indeed is buddhihi, the intellect. Yaha parataha, that which is superior, buddhehe, to the intellect, to saha, is indeed that. And what is that? He means self. So I told you, here it's a very cryptic shloka taken from Kathopanishad. So when we want to understand this shloka, we have to fall back upon the Kathopanishad shloka also, which I will explain. So they declare the sense organs to be superior to the sense objects. The mind is superior to the sense organs. The intellect is indeed superior to the mind. And that which is superior to the intellect is indeed that self, that Atma. So I said that the threefold disciplines or threefold bases, addressing them is only the first aid. That is not the ultimate solution. It's only a temporary stopgap solution. Like, in medicine, we have got two types of medicine, palliative medicine and curative medicine. Palliative medicine, it will give you temporary relief, like a cough syrup or something. You take that for 1 hour or 2 hours, you will not cough. When the effect is gone, the cough will come back. It's only a temporary solution. Like in the accidents also, we see the first aid is to be administered immediately. If there's a person who is injured in an accident, suppose there is a broken bone, there is a bleeding and all. So you administer first aid, temporary solution. Then they take the patient to the hospital. So here, in addressing these three bases, what is the temporary solution? Damaha, Shamaha and Viveka. All three are part of Sadhana Chatushtiya Sampatti. Samadhi Shatka Sampatti. So these three, Damaha, Shamaha and Viveka are compulsory. But one should not stop with these. This will give some temporary relief from karma, but one has to go for a permanent solution. And what is that permanent solution? Atma Jnanam Eva. Self-knowledge alone is the ultimate solution. Why do we say so? What is the logic behind it? The logic is this. Desire is an expression of a symptom of sense of incompleteness. I will repeat. Desire is an expression of or a symptom of a sense of incompleteness. Why do I want things and objects? Because I believe that without those things, I am incomplete. And that incompleteness is expressed in desire. And everyone has some sense of limitation, some sense of incompleteness. And this incompleteness manifests in desires for various things at various times. But this feeling of incompleteness militates against my inherent nature, which is completeness, purnaha, limitless. So this feeling of incompleteness is very uncomfortable for me. I can't live with that kind of incompleteness because I am actually complete. And therefore, constantly my attempt is to get rid of this feeling of incompleteness through karma or desires. And the delusion that karma causes is that it makes us believe that if we fulfill our immediate desire, we will become complete. But karma is a great trickster. When one desire is fulfilled, karma tempts us with another desire and then another desire. And it goes on and on and on. And the feeling of incompleteness never goes away. It is just like, a person sitting in a gambling table. A person who is afraid of losing will make you continue to play so that sometimes he feels that he will get a chance to win all that he has lost to you. Or better still, another good example which Swami Paramathananda quotes, this karma is like a Tanpura Shruti. Throughout the recital, it will continue. The feeling that I want this, I want that never goes away. Therefore, desire is an expression of apurnatvam, and it will go only by the discovery of purnatvam. If apurnatvam was my original nature, you cannot do away with it with your original nature. But Shastra says, Vedanta says, your original nature is purnatvam. Tvam purnaha asi. or aham purnaha asmi, I am full and complete. I do not lack anything. I do not need anything. We have seen this in the second chapter, in the earlier sloka in this chapter, and also in the one sloka in second chapter. We will discuss more about it in the next class. Okay, I'll stop here. It's time now. Om Purnamada Purnamidam Purnat Purnamudachyate Purnasya Purnamadhaya Purnameva Vasishyate Om Shanti 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 Harihi Om Sri Gurubhyo Namaha Harihi Om. Thank you all very much.
धन्यवाद जी.
धन्यवादः.
Thank you, Guruji. Dhanyawadaha.
Hari Om.
Hari Om. Thank you.
Hari Om Guruji.
Thank you, Guruji. Hari Om.
all very
Thank
much.
you.
Hari Om. Thank you, Guruji.
Thank you.
Thank you very much, Guruji. Namaskaram.
Namaskaram. Namaskaram.
Thank you, Guruji.
Thank you. Any questions?
Guruji,
Yeah.
how do you explain this to a younger person, like the person, the friend who said, oh, now you are retired and you can go into Vedanta, it's a good pastime. But how do you explain to young people who live in the environment, who are bombarded with all kinds of stimuli, and they feel that they are incomplete, and they do have a very slight idea that they're missing out on life because they're not getting their desires fulfilled. So they're half and half. They understand it, yet the force of the desires are so strong that they don't listen to their parents and do things which, that is the expression of their own karma and the suffering that they have to go through in this life. You cannot therefore spare them from their pain. But how do you help them in any way, if we can?
See, this is not a matter of explanation, it is a matter of teaching.
Teaching?
Teaching. This is the this is a knowledge which we need to impart to the youngsters. But the problem that we face is, once you have not been exposed to our religious scriptures in the early stages, in the formative stages of your life, then later stage, in order to inject this, becomes extremely difficult rather. And that is why, our whole system is designed in such a way, the Western educational system, because this problem would not have arisen earlier, because after Upanayanam, people will go to Gurukulam, learn about all these things for 10 to 12 years. They will also learn, if he was a Kshatriya, in addition to learning the scriptures, he would learn all that a Kshatriya is required to learn. A Vaishya will also learn, in addition to the scriptures, Arthashastra, etc. So when the person comes out to 18 years, 20 years, he is a complete person. He has got good, founding in
Foundation.
scriptures. He will understand the discriminative power has developed. He will know all those things. Now, with our youngsters, our problem is that this opportunity is totally lost to us. Therefore, what we have to depend upon, we have to depend upon their vasanas. If they are born with certain vasanas for scriptural learning, and which many people are born with that, it's not that they are not born. Even today, many children, they have very least, I would say, involvement in all the worldly things. Right from childhood, you can see there, and in fact, many times parents are worried about such children. In fact, when I was in the Gurukulam, one parent, through somebody, they contacted me and they said that, my son who is just 18 years old is talking about all this Vedanta and things like that and all. We are really worried for him and all that. And I told him, why should you worry? It's a good thing. If he is born with that, those vasanas, that means he is getting interest early in this life into go into scriptural studies and all. It's a good thing. No, who will marry him and things like that and all, because that's another problem. Family also is a very big contributory factor in pulling you back from even if you want to go. There are very few like Swami Paramarthanandaji and all that, or Swami Puja Swamiji, and there are other sannyasis who are there whose family agreed. In fact, in case of Swami Sadatmananda, he and his sister, right from young age, they were so much interested that both actually pursued Vedanta and both took sannyasa from Puja Swamiji. Their family was very happy to let them go to pursue what they wanted to pursue in life. But then most of the families, this won't apply. So the point is that at this point in time, what we have to do, we have to set an example ourselves mostly. We must not let our children feel that we are doing all these things because we have nothing else to do. That is the first thing we have to. This is very important for me. I will not compromise on this. Whether it is teaching Vedanta or learning Vedanta, I will not compromise. I mean, for example, my own children, they are not averse to Vedanta. In fact, they actually discuss Vedanta with me. But what happens is they are not into it. I mean, they don't want to give up what they want right now to jump into this thing, which is fine. As long as they are successfully developing certain vasanas for all these teaching. Maybe not now, once they are a little bit retired, rather, right? Sort of retired, they may probably take up, further their learning of this subject. So it is not something that we have to force it upon children. They will have to naturally evolve in this spiritual field, rather. And because of the last 1,000 years or whatever it is, maybe how many butts that they would have taken, we don't know. The whole system, even in this birth, is so much, I would call it mixed up, that there is absolutely no focus on scriptural learning at all. Right from childhood, we want to send the children to nursery. We want to send the children to convents. Everything is fine. In fact, in convents, when they go, they will be taken to the church and taught about the Christian religion. But our own religion, we fail to impart. Because of that, what happens? One generation go further, one generation, they don't know anything about our religion. So what they will teach the children also becomes the question. So all these issues are there. And that is why, a lot of Mahatma, like Shankara Peetam and all that, the Shankara Matams. In Kanchi Matam, they have got patashalas, not patashalas, schools, where in the morning session they are taught all Vedic scriptures, and then in the afternoon session they are taught, physics, chemistry, maths, CBSE curriculum or something like that. So that when they come out of school, they will be good. They can have a lot of career choices. Either they can go fully for the Veda teaching and Veda practicing, or they can go to the Laukika world and then they can earn money what they want to do. So that's, in fact, I visited one of those schools along with Jayendra Saraswati and Vijayendra Saraswati. I went to one of those schools. Beautiful school. Morning 4:30 they wake up. 4:30 to 7, 3.5 hours, they do only Veda Adhyayanam, practice and all that. After 7 o'clock, they are given some breakfast and all that. Then regular school begins, normally. Then in the evening also, again, after 3 o'clock, 3 to 4, I think they play some sports and all that for this thing. And then after 4 o'clock, then Vedadhyayanam, Sandhyavandanam, all those. So there's a very good mixture of both these things happening in such schools, but they are very few. Many governments, because of political reasons, don't support such things rather. So there are genuine problems. So it's not an easy question to answer. What your answer is question is very valid. But it's not very easy to answer that question. We have to bring in a total change in the system itself if that has to happen. Then all this competition, cutthroat business and all will go away. Because Vedanta, our culture is not a competitive culture. Our culture is a coexisting culture. We want to coexist with everybody. That is why, even the Chatur Varnyam, these 4 Varnas, they are created as a division of labor. It is not so that nobody competes with another in terms of, okay, I will do that. But today what has happened? Because of this total change in the culture, there is competition. There is no differentiation between a Vaishya, Shudra, Brahmana, etc. Everybody wants to do everything. And so you come up with scheduled caste reservation, scheduled tribe reservation, which further complicates everything. So we cannot talk about this unless one has developed a personal interest in that because of his past vasanas. We cannot force any of our children to do it. Expose them, keep exposing them by being a leading example rather. Okay, I am doing all these things. Many houses, they don't even light a lamp. You can imagine, I have seen that. The ladies of the house are so busy in their earning. They don't have time in the morning after taking bath. For many cases, they don't even take bath. They take bath whenever they want. Night before going to sleep, they will take a bath. And they will say that, oh, yesterday night only I have taken bath. Why I should take a bath in the morning? Right? So all these arguments have all come rather. So it's very difficult to change all that. Ardent criminals like, not possible to change. Anyway.
I found that in my experience that you can't teach our children. It's very difficult.
Yeah.
For their exposure. But one thing I think instead of teaching them anything, I found that I remember when I was saying my father, what he used to do was get up in the morning, first finish bath, everything. You say the prayers, and he used to give me the slogan, recite, and he used to give like a competition. Now learn by heart Sahasnama, learn by heart Suprabhatam, all that. And then, we have many of the people we have. Why not we have at least once a week if get together and have a family lunch, family dinner, let at least not in the morning, at least in the night. Let us all sit together and have lunch. Similarly, what used to happen was every Friday, ladies they said, okay, recite the Aavignidhi Stotram. Every Saturday recite Sahasnama, and it used to be a family kind of a thing. Now, if our children, I have seen this practically, that our own children, if you start first, maybe it is little forcing, but over a period of time, it becomes a habit. And then that gives a kind of an exposure to them, so that when they reach the middle age, probably they are already tuned into learning the Vedanta.
Yeah. That's what I said, first of all, we have to take the initiative. Now, you are saying that your father, in your family, this happened. How many families that is happening today? You can count on your fingers.
Yeah, that is because we have become nuclear. That's the thing.
No, not only nuclear. That is quite true. That is one of the very basic factors. Not only nuclear, but in the evening time, when you are supposed to sit and chant, very attractive serials come in the TV. Nobody wants to miss that. So at the time when you are supposed to spend, your time is already appointment fixed with Bhagawad to do all these things. You fix an appointment with the TV channels, and then you go on seeing all the TV serials from 7 to 10 or 7 to 9. Then follows by dinner, everybody goes to sleep. And when the children see that the parents are seeing the TV, they say, why I am not interested in these TV serials. I will go and play with my friends. But this is, I'm not saying that everybody is like, for example, in our class, the Satya Swarupan is there.
Yes.
He is interested. He is attending Viveka Chudamani, he is attending Bhagavad Gita classes and all that. So it is not that totally gone. There are certain, the embers are there in some people. And that we will have to sort of, give supply oxygen for that to blow. But our dharma is Sanatana dharma. It is eternal. It will never ever go away. That much Shraddha we must have. It may be low in flames or whatever it is, but the way things are happening now in India, but basically, I think I see a lot of change in happening in people getting back to their roots rather than being taken away from their roots. So many things are happening. So it is a cosmic cycle, cosmic order. Sanatana Dharma is a cosmic order. So it will survive. It knows how to survive. And despite all, and that is why people say that you look at the history, so many invasions, so many things, but the Hinduism still 85% India is Hindus. The Sanatana Dharma, nobody has been able to, in other countries, they have totally changed the religion completely, totally changed the culture. But even here, they tried that, but nobody has succeeded. That is the power of the Sanatana Dharma. So it will happen. But as I said, in today's circumstance, as I see, people who are actually, even for that matter, after retirement also, those who are getting attracted to this is because of their vasanas. Because there are many people who after retirement, they look for some consultancy and they have no idea that there is something wonderful like this, if I learn, it will help me lead my life peacefully with total freedom, total independence, total happiness for the rest of my life. That people, even if you tell them, they don't appreciate it. So even at the as a senior citizen, you are coming to Vedanta. That is also not because we have got exposed to scriptures at our young age, but because the vasanas we are probably carrying from the past, and which vasanas are helping. There are certain karmas sitting there, they are maturing at that time. So we automatically come to this. And that is how I see the whole thing.
Yes,
Namaste,
Guruji.
Guruji.
Happened is that, the recent judgment that Ananta Padmanabha Swami Kovil of Trivandrum has been restored to the Travancore family, which is from the, there's no government and control now. It has come back to the Travancore family. It's a very good judgment, I feel, because now similar things should happen elsewhere, especially in Tamil Nadu. It should come out of that. Nothing wrong. I don't see how the government is going to control the temples. It should be with them. That is a great change, I think.
Government control and all, that's a big history behind it. It started from the British time. But unfortunately, no government has been able to address it because it's a big source of money for them.
Yeah, exactly.
That is why nobody is prepared to. But the cases are going on in the Supreme Court. And in fact, Puja Swamiji had actually engaged the Subramaniam Swami. There is a case going on. There are other lawyers also who have filed cases and all that. Let us see what happens. I mean, finally, ultimately, it's a political decision. Courts can only, give decision, judgments. Eventually, implementation with the politicians. So they have to take this. Yes, Lataji, what's your question?
Pranam Guruji, I'll wait for Satyaji to ask his question. I'm sure that will be more enlightening.
So one more question.
No, Satyaji.
Yeah, thank you, Lataji. Just one statement, Guruji, from my side. First of all, thanks a lot for addressing my name. And secondly, Guruji, so you had mentioned that Sanatana Dharma is probably the only Dharma which is still continuing, irrespective of how many cultures have tried to destroy your culture with colonial rule and even Mughal rule and even like so many other rulers as well. Even Buddhist rulers, in fact. So I think that's because our culture is the only culture which says that Bhagavan is within you, you can attain Bhagavan, and you and Bhagavan are same. Whereas there are so many other religions where they just have Bhagavan as a separate entity, and for them it's just replacing one god with another god, and it does not hold the root to it. And I think the reason why Sanatana Dharma is still there, will still be there, is probably the only reason why we have such a beautiful connect to Bhagavan and not just a mere materialistic relationship with us and the Bhagavan.
Correct. Absolutely right. Absolutely right. In fact, if you understand Sanatana Dharma can be understood at various levels. One of the things which people do not understand when they are opposing Sanatana Dharma is, what is that word dharma in Sanatana Dharma represent? Because dharma has got one interpretation, one meaning as religion, right? So they take that, but that is not the meaning of dharma in Sanatana Dharma. The meaning of dharma in Sanatana Dharma is right living. And so the values which are embedded in Sanatana Dharma, that values are shared by other cultures also, like Christianity and all.
Yeah.
There is no need for, in fact, Christianity also, one can say, is Sanatana Dharma.
Dharma. Right.
Because the same values, the 10 commandments which they talk about, thou shalt not do this, thou shalt not do that, the same thing our Vedas also talk about.
Right, Guruji.
So they don't understand this, they have actually created a narrative as if the dharma in Sanatana Dharma is means a religion. It is not.
Right.
It is a way of life, which is true, holds true for everybody eternally. I don't want to be harmed, so I should not harm anybody. I don't want anybody to tell me, untruths or, false. So I should not speak untruths to others. It's very simply put. In fact, Christianity has got that, in English there is a saying, do unto others what you do not want others do unto you. Correct. So that's a very beautiful, that is what is Sanatana Dharma is.
Absolutely.
Which people don't explain, they don't understand. Sanatana Dharma, Hinduism, and all totally mixed up rather. All false narratives created. So Sanatana Dharma is not only for we Indians and Hindus, it is applicable to the entire world, and that is why it is said Sanatana Dharma. And these values will never ever become obsolete rather.
Absolutely, Guruji.
As long as a human being is there, these values will be very valid rather. So that is why it is eternal, it is Sanatana.
Absolutely, Guruji.
Are there, but I don't want to get too much into that.
Right, good. I think when our religion started, actually, not to say religion, our dharma started like becoming, it had Ganapathy, it had Kaumaram, and all of the components to it. I mean, we were even open to accepting Jesus as one of our gods. We could even argue that the concept of Allah, that it's formless, and all of those, we could even accept some form of it. It's just that they identify themselves as separate, and it's not us who is pushing them out. So
we have no problem with whatever they want to worship.
right.
In fact, Krishna will say in Bhagavad Gita later that whatever whomsoever wants to worship me in any form, they are welcome.
They're welcome.
So he has no problem.
That's
That
the beauty
whatever
of
form you want to worship, you worship me, no problem. You worship me as Allah. Worship. Ultimately, if you say God is formless, he's neither male nor female, well, how does it matter? You give your name to the God, I give my name to the God, and let us all worship. That is important. But they don't all these political issues and all come in the way, and so that's what creates the problem.
True. Dhanyawada, Guruji.
Dhanyawada. Thank you. Yes, Lataji, now your turn.
Namaste, Guruji.
Namaste.
Mine is from the answer you gave earlier. So what the conclusion is, if you want to gain the right knowledge, whether it's for adults or children, a study of the Shastras is the only way.
Yes.
That's one conclusion. I mean, that's one impression I got. And the second one is it's more towards me. Question is more related to me and knowledge. Now we being in the online Gurukulam of Sri Raghuji, your online Gurukulam, thanks to your online Gurukulam, we are getting the knowledge of, we are getting the Jnanam. And for the Jnanam to become Vijnanam, apart from Shravana Mananam and Nididhyasam, what else can one do on a day-to-day basis for the Jnanam to become Vijnanam, or is it only a question of time, or
it's a question of time, and it's a question
is
of
it is meditation is one of the ways, or is there anything else we can do apart from we should do as disciples or students for the Jnanam to become Vijnanam?
See,
That's my question.
in one way, if I put it, what is Jnanam? Jnanam is, I am a composition of two entities, Atma
Yes.
and Anatma, correct? That is Jnanam. Vijnanam is, I am only Atma. That is Vijnanam, right? So what you are doing, you are disidentifying yourself with the body, mind, sense complex. Earlier, you had two identification with two entities. One is body, mind, sense complex. Another is Atma. Correct? In Jnanam stage, this was your identity. And that is what we are now pursuing that line, so that we don't say that this body, mind, sense complex is Anatma, so Mithya, etc. We are not come to that stage at all. Right? We are saying that, okay, there is a certain degree of reality which we attach to the body, mind, sense complex. But we have now learned that there is also something called Atma. So at the Jnanam stage, we say, I am the combination of Atma and Anatma, combination of the consciousness and body, mind, sense complex. Right? Now, Vedanta says that that is a temporary conclusion. Fine, you can carry on with that for some time. But the eventual conclusion is that you are only consciousness. You are not body, mind, sense complex. Body, mind, sense complex is only a instrument that you are using. In reality, your nature, your personality is only consciousness. So that change has to come in identification. And that change will come when you are totally convinced about what the teaching is. And that conviction for the teaching, how it will come? It will come only through continuously exposing yourself with various sources. Suppose I'll give you a small example. There is somebody comes and tell you that something has happened like this in one place, which is a little unbelievable rather. I will not give a specific example. Something which is unbelievable has happened in one place. He comes and tells, will you believe that person? Immediately you will say, okay, maybe, it's impossible for such a thing to happen. But since you say, okay, fine, you will not be convinced. But then you find that more and more people are coming and telling you, giving you the same message, that such and such thing has happened, such and such thing has happened at that place. Same message is being given. When a number of people talk about it, what happens? Your conviction rate increases. You become more and more convinced. When so many people are saying the same thing, maybe that is true. And then what you want to do, I want to go and see it myself, if that is true or not. So what initially was a doubtful conviction has now, by exposure to so many other people saying the same thing, it has become more or less a doubtless conviction. So similarly, when initially at the Jnanam stage, if you are told that you are Atma, there will be a doubtful conviction. Okay, Guruji is saying, and Guruji cannot be wrong. Guruji has learnt all these things from the different sources of Upanishads, so it must be right. But at that stage, your identification with the body, mind, sense complex will still not go away. You will not consider your body, mind, sense complex just as an instrument, as a dress that you are wearing for your consciousness to reside. You will not do that. So for that, what you have to do? Instead of attending one class in a week or 2 classes in a week, you have to attend classes 7 days a week. Expose yourself to all the scriptural, as I told you, the Prasthana Trayam. At least you must read 5 out of the 10 Upanishads and read it with Bhashyam, Shankara Bhashyam, and see. Because if you have Shraddha in Adi Shankara, great scholar, who has no axe to grind, he will not tell the wrong thing. He has studied the same scriptures and he is explaining to us. So you get exposure to that study. You study Bhagavad Gita with Bhashyam, not like what we are doing here. Where here we are just doing the Moolam with little bit of contribution from Bhashyam here and there for interpretation. But if you study the Bhashyam, lot more things are there in the Bhashyam which will help you to get convinced. The logical reasoning, everything is given for whatever is being taught. Then eventually come to Brahma Sutra. Brahma Sutra you study. In fact, there are people, Puja Swamiji himself, he went to one guru in Andhra Pradesh only to study Brahma Sutra for 3.5 years. Daily Brahma Sutra, full Brahma Sutra, he studied 3.5 years. One Swamiji. Swami Pranavananda, if I am not wrong. So that is the process one has to go through. So that is what will convert. You will get totally convinced that I am consciousness. This body, mind, sense complex is only an instrument I am using. I am not, that's okay, fine. I have to take care of this instrument, but I cannot give it more importance than I can give to my consciousness. What I am. I will treat it accordingly. Just like I will treat my spectacles. I will treat my hearing aids. I will not consider hearing aids to be more important than me. Without hearing aids, I will not survive and all that kind of a thing. So that total change in the attitude, change in the understanding, that conviction that Aham Atma, Aham Brahmasmi will come at the Vijnanam stage only. For that, lot of exposure is required to scriptures. That is the thing. What do you think I am doing now in teaching? I am actually trying to gain that exposure. When I passed out of Gurukulam, I was at the Jnanam stage. I know I am Atma and consciousness. Now through repeated teaching, and for repeated teaching, I have to study. I have to study here. For example, when I am quoting from Kathopanishad, I have to refer to Kathopanishad mantras. I have to refer to my notes from the class to see, what exactly is being said is correct or not. So then my exposure increases. I've got lot of class notes of all the Upanishads there study. Whenever I find time, I open those notes. I just go through them. Even though I am the person who has done the note, I just go through them, with Bhashyam, what has Shankara said. And when I am going through that, I find that there are a lot of useful things that I can share with my students. But here in the class, my constraint is there is only one class in a week. And I have to make sure that this Bhagavad Gita, the classes do not go till eternity. It doesn't become Sanatana Dharma. So I have to judge how much I should tell, how much I should, cut out and all that. That decision I have to take. But for my own growth, spiritual growth, I have got enough material. If I don't go to a guru, at least I am studying what my gurus have taught me again and again and again. So this is a process which goes on, and I cannot tell you any time frame. this will so and so date, it will have it. I cannot tell you any time frame. Only thing I can tell you is the more you do it, you will realize, you will find a constant improvement in that understanding. That is what we like. Yeah.
Thank you. Thank you.
Thank you.
Namaste, Namaste, Guruji.
Was there?
Yeah, I have a question.
Yeah.
You were telling that this consciousness is operational through the body sometimes. So that sometimes can you tell what you are referring to sometimes? I mean, sometimes it is not operational.
Consciousness uses the body sometimes.
Huh.
At other times when we are sleeping, consciousness is there but doesn't use the body.
Okay.
Understand? When we are in dream state, consciousness does not use our body, but it uses our mind. In deep sleep state, even the mind it does not use. Consciousness is still there. Because if consciousness has left, then we will not wake up. Correct? So consciousness is constantly there in the three states. Only thing is at different stages, different instruments are used. That's all. And sometimes no instrument is used, like in deep sleep. Everything, body, mind, everything is completely resolved, right? But consciousness is there. And that is why next day when you wake up, you say what? I had a very good sleep. So knowledge?
Yeah.
From where did you get that knowledge? Your mind was not working. Your buddhi was not working. Your body parts, sthula sarira was not working. But still, you wake up, you wake up with the knowledge that you had a sound sleep. Because that consciousness was always there. It is the consciousness which absorbed this experience of sound sleep. Then when you woke up, it conveyed to you through your mind. So presence of consciousness, we can prove it. Shastra proves it in so many ways, right? This is one of the way in Mandukya Upanishad, this analysis of these three states of mind, the three states of experience, that is Jagrata Avastha, Swapna Avastha and Sushupti Avastha, they are analyzed in order to prove the existence of consciousness. Because one has to prove it, otherwise we will not accept it. It is there, how will we know? We have never seen it. That is why.
Okay. Yeah.
So that is the meaning. So it is not consciousness temporarily using body. It is body which is temporary. Sometimes consciousness uses the body. Sometimes consciousness uses the mind. Sometimes just
intellect.
it is there. That's all.
Yeah. Okay, Guruji. Thank you.
Right. Thank you very much. Any more questions? Or if everything is done, we can close the session. Okay. I think no more questions are there. Thank you all very much. Hari Om.
Hari Om Guruji. Thank you so much.